April 8th, 1943, 27,000 feet above Caen, France. The thin air at this altitude could not hide Oberleutnant Rolf Hermiken's contemptuous smirk as he gazed through the crystal-clear canopy of his Focke-Wulf 190A5. This veteran ace of Jagdgeschwader 26 studied the ungainly American fighters climbing laboriously toward his formation. "The enemy has sent us flying milk bottles," he transmitted to his wingman, unable to suppress his laughter at the sight of the massive Republic P-47 Thunderbolts struggling for altitude. Below them, 16 P-47C Thunderbolts of the 4th Fighter Group lumbered upward in disciplined formation. Their 2,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engines strained against their 7-ton weight. To German pilots accustomed to the sleek Spitfires and nimble Soviet fighters, these corpulent American machines appeared almost comical. Their barrel-shaped fuselages were topped with greenhouse canopies, wings that seemed inadequate for their massive bodies, and propellers that dwarfed anything in the Luftwaffe inventory. What Hermiken could not have known, what none of the German pilots circling like predators above could have imagined, was that they were witnessing the arrival of the weapon that would systematically annihilate the Luftwaffe's fighter arm. Within 18 months, these objects of derision would transform into instruments of terror, their .850 caliber Browning machine guns becoming the most feared sound in German skies. The mathematics of destruction were already loaded in those broad wings. 3,400 rounds of ammunition, a combined rate of fire of 6,000 rounds per minute, enough concentrated firepower to sever a Messerschmitt in half in less than 2 seconds. The transformation would begin that April morning when Major Donald Blakesley, commanding the 335th Fighter Squadron, spotted the German formation positioning for attack. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt had emerged from a June 1940 panic. As German fighters swept across France, Alexander Kartfeldy, Republic Aviation's Georgian-born chief designer, received urgent specifications from the United States Army Air Forces. They demanded a high-altitude interceptor capable of matching the Luftwaffe's finest. What Kartfeldy designed instead was a monster that redefined possibility. "It will be a dinosaur," Kartfeldy admitted to his design team, "but it will be a dinosaur with perfect proportions." The XP-47B prototype that first flew on May 6, 1941, shocked everyone who witnessed it. At 9,900 pounds empty, it weighed 65% more than its predecessor, the P-43 Lancer. The massive turbo-supercharger system, with its complex ducting running through the rear fuselage, gave it an almost pregnant appearance. Not only did it fly, it flew like nothing else at altitude. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, an 18-cylinder radial producing 2,000 horsepower, could maintain full power at 27,000 feet, where German fighters gasped for oxygen. The turbo supercharger, fed by exhaust gases, delivered sea-level performance in the stratosphere, where conventional superchargers failed. Major Hubert Hub Zemke, commanding the 56th Fighter Group during training at Bridgeport, Connecticut, initially despised the aircraft. His unit lost 18 pilots and 41 aircraft in training accidents between September 1942 and January 1943. The P-47 killed more Americans in training than Germans would manage in the first months of combat. But those who mastered it discovered something extraordinary. Lieutenant Robert Johnson, a farm boy from Oklahoma who would become one of America's top aces with 27 victories, described his first flight. It was like strapping yourself to a locomotive. The power was unbelievable. You did not fly it. You aimed it. The first combat encounters in April and May 1943 confirmed every German prejudice. The P-47s could not turn with the Focke-Wulf 190s, could not climb with the Messerschmitt 109s, could not match their nimble handling at medium altitudes. Luftwaffe pilots quickly developed tactics to exploit these weaknesses, attacking from below, where the heavy Thunderbolts struggled, forcing turning fights where agility mattered more than firepower. Altmann Josef Pips Priller, commanding officer of Jagdgeschwader 26, reported to headquarters after his first encounter. The new American fighter is meat for the slaughter. It flies like a truck, turns like a freight train, and climbs like a pregnant cow. Our boys are calling them Indiana, fat targets pretending to be warriors. But something extraordinary was happening in those early encounters that German intelligence failed to notice. The P-47s that were shot down had absorbed incredible punishment before falling. The massive radial engine, lacking vulnerable coolant systems, shrugged off hits that would have stopped a liquid-cooled fighter instantly. More significantly, when P-47s did get their guns on target, the results were catastrophic. The Thunderbolt's weapons battery created a convergence zone of destruction that German pilots had never experienced. Unlike the rifle-caliber weapons of early war fighters or cannon with limited ammunition, the American fighter could maintain sustained fire for over 30 seconds, an eternity in aerial combat. The event that began changing German perceptions occurred on June 26, 1943, over Le Havre, France. It involved Second Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson of the 61st Fighter Squadron, and an encounter that would become legendary on both sides of the conflict. Johnson's P-47, caught in crossfire from multiple German attackers, took catastrophic damage, but continued flying with wounds that would have reduced any other fighter to falling debris. July 1943, American pilots were learning to exploit the P-47's true strengths. Lieutenant Colonel Hubert Zemke had discovered the secret through brutal trial and error. Do not turn with them. Do not climb with them at low altitude. Use your weight. Use your power. Use your guns. The Thunderbolt's massive weight, initially seen as a disadvantage, became a weapon. In a dive, nothing could catch it. From 30,000 feet, a P-47 could reach 550 miles per hour, faster than any German fighter could achieve even in a vertical dive. This speed could be converted to altitude in a zoom climb that left pursuing fighters helplessly behind. Captain Walter Bud Maharin, who would become one of the first American aces in Europe, developed what became known as the boom and zoom tactic. P-47 formations would climb to 30,000 feet, higher than German fighters could effectively operate. When Luftwaffe fighters appeared below, the Thunderbolts would roll inverted and dive, reaching speeds that made deflection shooting impossible for defending Germans. At the bottom of these dives, the American heavy machine guns would speak. German pilots who survived described it as facing a wall of lead. The combined firepower created an impenetrable zone of destruction. Aircraft caught in this convergence pattern did not merely fall, they disintegrated. By September 1943, the Luftwaffe was discovering another horrifying reality about the P-47. Its performance improved dramatically with altitude, while German fighters suffered. The turbo-supercharged double Wasp engine maintained its rated power output up to 30,000 feet, while German fighters, relying on mechanical superchargers, saw their performance degrade significantly above 25,000 feet. The psychological transformation was complete by 1944. German pilots developed what medical officers called Jabo fever, physical symptoms of stress appearing when Thunderbolts were reported in the area. Veterans who had faced Spitfires and Hurricanes without fear became physically ill before missions against P-47s. The final statistics defied comprehension. In Europe alone, 3,752 German aircraft destroyed in aerial combat, 86,000 railway cars destroyed, 9,000 locomotives eliminated, 68,000 trucks obliterated. Republic Aviation produced 15,683 P-47s during the war, more than any other American fighter. At the 1985 reunion of German and American fighter pilots in Phoenix, Arizona, former adversaries met in peace. General Adolf Galland, former head of the Luftwaffe fighter arm, was asked about the P-47. His recorded response captured the complete transformation. "We made a terrible mistake in 1943. We saw this big, heavy fighter and laughed. The Americans do not understand air combat," we said. We were the ones who did not understand. Those guns, we called them Roosevelt's piano because of the sound they made. Once you heard that sound, you never forgot it. The P-47 Thunderbolt entered combat as an object of derision and ended the war as an instrument of annihilation. In between, 8 synchronized Browning machine guns rewrote the rules of aerial warfare and buried the Luftwaffe under an avalanche of lead. German pilots had laughed at the ungainly American fighter in April 1943. By May 1945, there were no German pilots left to laugh. The thunder had spoken, and the sky belonged to America.